What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to stay out daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. In this video, what I'm going to be going over, I'm probably going to be able to make multiple videos on this because there's a lot of cut candidates, but I'm going to be looking at the players that could potentially be cut when training camp starts, maybe after a preseason game or maybe even after two preseason games, they get cut and the Ravens could scoop up because a lot of people have been questioning, why have the Ravens not been signing Justin Houston? Why have the Ravens not signed, Todd Gurley? The players that the Ravens have, shown interest in, especially recently, according to various sites. I don't want to get into like NFL rumors or whatever, people like that. But, overall, people are like, why are the Ravens not signing players? And the biggest thing that I have been saying is that the Ravens are most likely waiting for other players to be cut so that they can see their options, because they may not value Justin Houston as high to the point where they are like, we need to sign this guy ASAP. They obviously don't value him that much. So they're waiting. Maybe an edge rusher gets cut and either they sign that other edge rusher or that edge rusher lowers the value of Justin Houston because now there's more of a supply, and then, economic supply and demand. When there's more supply, the price is cheaper. So then we can get Justin Houston on a cheaper contract. So there's a lot of players that could be cut from almost every team because most teams in the NFL are in a contract or salary cap situation, especially after the lowered cap, where they are going to need to cut people. And there's always players that are cut. They're surprising. Now, I'm not saying that the players that I talk about in these types of videos are guaranteed to be cut. Nobody's guaranteed to be cut. If we looked at the Ravens, we'd be like, okay, what are some good players that could be cut? There's plenty of guys that we could say could be cut. However, you can't say definitively that they won't make the roster unless you're like, some random person that was signed, as an undrafted player. You're like, this guy's most likely going to be cut. But I'm looking at good NFL players, veteran NFL players that I think could be good signings for the Ravens or players that the Ravens could be interested in. But as always, let me know what your thoughts on these players. And if they were cut, do you think the Ravens should target them? And if they do, how much do you think the Ravens should sign them for? So getting into this, I've used PFF. I know PFF, Ravens fans, we all hate PFF, as a reference just to see what they thought could be cut candidates, because obviously I don't know everything about every single roster in the NFL. And I did look into the players afterwards to see like if it would make sense why they cut them, to do a little bit more research into the players, not just like taking PFF at their word. And the first player that I felt like was interesting was Jimmy Graham. Now, obviously the Ravens have two tight ends that are set. They have Mark Andrews and they have Nick Boyle. That's two players that, boom, they're going to be on the roster barring any setback or injury, which, knock on wood, doesn't happen. But the Ravens need a three tight end set. That is something that I think everybody recognized last year, especially after the loss of Nick Boyle to the injury. And then all of a sudden it became kind of a 2 or a 1.5 tight end set, where it was Patrick Ricard playing a fair amount of tight end. Now, the Ravens do have options at the tight end spot. They brought in the weapon, Josh Oliver. They obviously drafted Ben Mason. They have plenty of guys that could potentially be that tight end 3. However, if the Ravens aren't satisfied with any of those players, maybe it's after, preseason week 1 and they're like, you know what, these guys really didn't show us what we really wanted in a tight end. Maybe the Ravens are looking for more of that pass catching tight end like a Jimmy Graham would bring. And they're like, all right, let's see Jimmy Graham. And they bring him in. Maybe he plays a final preseason game. And they're like, you know what, he fits and he works. Looking at kind of Jimmy Graham's contract right now, Jimmy Graham is making $6.9 million. That's his base salary. His cap hit is about $10 million. And Chicago, if they were to release him after the June 1st deadline, which obviously we're already past, it would save them $7 million in cap. So that would obviously save them a lot of money. Now, if you look at the tight end position in Chicago, is there a need to cut him? Now, if you don't know, they drafted Cole Kmet, I believe, last year in the draft, not this draft, the year before that draft. And they drafted Cole Kmet, and I believe he was the first tight end taken off the board. He had a lot of potential. And the Chicago Bears have a ton of tight ends on the roster. I found an article from Chicago Bears, .com, and they talk about after Graham and Kmet, they have J.P. Holtz, Jesper Horsted, Jake Butt, Scooter Harrington. I'm pretty sure they have like 9 guys, actually. I couldn't find the actual list that said that, but I believe the Bears have like 9 tight ends that they can choose from. And if they want to go younger and they want to utilize, Cole Kmet a little bit more, especially with the younger quarterback that Justin Fields. We don't know when he'll be starting, but it's expected that he'll be starting, probably like week 6 or something like that. I would love to see Justin Fields start from week 1, but it could be Andy Dalton. We don't know. And Jimmy Graham isn't going to get any better for them. It's not going to help. I don't think the Bears are looking at themselves like Super Bowl contenders this year. Maybe they are. I don't think they are. I think they're looking at it like, okay, we got Justin Fields. We need to build this year and be contenders next year. I think is probably how they're looking at it. Well, Jimmy Graham's off of his contract after this year. He's probably not going to go back to Chicago. So, why not use Cole Kmet, the tight end that you drafted, the first tight end drafted last year? I think that they very well could do that, and he could potentially be a cut candidate. Looking at Jimmy Graham's stats now, because I think a lot of people recognize Jimmy Graham is not the Jimmy Graham we all used to watch in New Orleans. However, he still does one thing. He catches touchdown passes. He had 8 touchdowns last year. That's more than Mark Andrews had. And he played in 16 games. He's played in 16 games each of the last 5 years. So obviously he's able to stay healthy. He's played in 16 games almost every year of his career, except for 3 years. And 2 of those years he played 15 games. So overall, Jimmy Graham is just I don't want to say sure-handed, but a good jump ball player that the Ravens could utilize as a third tight end, especially in goal line situations, because you can put him out wide. You don't have to line him up on the line. You can put him out wide, and he just becomes a threat. Because you don't really want to put a cornerback out there on Jimmy Graham. Jimmy Graham was a collegiate basketball player. He's 6'7". So just doing that, if you just put Jimmy Graham out wide at the wide receiver spot at the 5-yard line, you could run the ball with Gus Edwards. You can run the ball with Patrick Ricard or Lamar or J.K. Dobbins or Justice Hill. They would have to focus on Jimmy Graham because they do not want to get mossed by Jimmy Graham, because that's what Jimmy Graham has done his entire career, was catch touchdowns. Now, he did have the off years in Seattle and Green Bay where he definitely wasn't as good, but even in 2017 in Seattle, he had 10 touchdowns, which is a very good season for a tight end. But Green Bay, he definitely wasn't the same guy. However, Aaron Rodgers isn't known for throwing to the tight end significantly. I do understand that he had Robert Tonyan last year. He threw to him a lot. He led the NFL for tight ends and touchdown receptions. However, traditionally, Aaron Rodgers in the tight end position in recent years, a while back, he had Jermichael Finley. But Jermichael Finley was more like a secondary wide receiver, if we're being honest. Jimmy Graham is a big body tight end, and Rodgers just didn't utilize him. And now in Chicago, he's being utilized. And I think that he could be utilized in Baltimore if he were to be cut by Chicago, which there is an opportunity. They would save money. Then they would be able to go younger at the tight end spot with Cole Kmet. Now, the next player that we could go over is Mario Addison from the Buffalo Bills. Mario Addison is 34 years old, and if he were to be cut, he has right now a $8.1 million cap hit for the Buffalo Bills, $4 million base salary. And if he were to be cut, obviously, after the post-6-1 release, it would save him a little over $2 million. And from PFF, what I was reading is it's expected that the Bills are like $1 million over the cap. So, they don't have to cut Mario Addison. However, they went younger in the draft. This is why I had to do the more research, because PFF does not explain any of that stuff. They're just like, oh yeah, they can cut him. And it's like, what's the reason for it? So obviously I had to do a little bit more research, and you look into and I remembered from this from the draft, but they drafted Gregory Rousseau in the first round, which is a player that I've talked about plenty of times. Gregory Rousseau, very similar to Odafe Oweh in the sense that he's not super polished. He's very new to the position, doesn't get a ton of sacks. He sat out last year. But then they also drafted their next pick. Their first 2 picks were edge rushers. They drafted Boogie Basham. I can't remember how exactly you're supposed to pronounce it. But 2 edge rushers first. Boom. That shows that they want to get younger at the edge rusher position rather than having a Mario Addison, a 34-year-old kind of slow defensive end. They could go younger, and they could really try and get athletic on that defensive line, which is what they did. So do they really need to be paying Mario Addison? They could. He could absolutely be a good mentor. He's a good veteran. He's a good football player. However, if they do need to cut players, Mario Addison could be one of those guys that could get cut. And the Ravens could absolutely use a guy that can get them some sacks. Now, would he be playing every single snap? No, he wouldn't. He would be substituted in with the Calais Campbells, the Derek Wolfs, on the interior kind of side of the defensive line. But he would be a good player that you could put out there and be like, all right, why don't you teach some guys how to play some football? And those guys being Odafe Oweh, those guys being Dalen Hayes, and he could be a very good mentor for them and possibly a good combo to pair with Calais Campbell. You look at his recent years. Last year, he had 5 sacks. He only started 7 games. He played in 15. The year before that, 9.5. The year before that, he had 9. The year before that, 11. This was back in Carolina. Then 9.5 before that. So that shows you that, he was a very consistent player for about 5 years in Carolina. Then he went to Buffalo and he had a significant decrease, but the Buffalo defense isn't very good. And I'm not trying to take shots at Buffalo, but I think they would even agree, or Buffalo fans would even agree, that the Buffalo defense isn't the defense that it was 3-4 years ago. But Mario Addison could come into Baltimore, could get 5 or 6 sacks if he were playing in Baltimore and got enough snaps. He would definitely be cheaper, in my opinion, than a Justin Houston, as he's coming from a base salary of $4 million. The Ravens could probably get him for something similar to that. And I really think that it could be a viable option for the Ravens to go after. But let me know in the comment section down below. What do you think about possibly adding Mario Addison or Jimmy Graham if they get cut? If you're a fan of the Bills or the Bears, let me know if you think that they could be cut candidates. Obviously, I'm not a fan of them. I don't follow every single article about them, so I don't know kind of what the Bills fans are thinking, what the Bears fans are thinking, but I think that they are definitely candidates to be cut. I can't say with 100% certainty that they will be cut. However, there's a lot of videos that I can make on this if you like these kind of topics where I talk about the other players, because there were many other players that I wanted to talk about that could be cut. Let me know in the comment section down below if you like this type of video. But thank you, everybody, for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content. Subscribe to the second channel, which videos should be coming out very soon on there. It's in the description down below, and I will see all of you again tomorrow.